Being 6 o'clock, call this meeting of Chelmsford School Committee to order. We all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This meeting is being live streamed by Chelmsford Telemedia and posted to the CPS website for interested community members to access and watch. In-person public participation will be taking place tonight in accordance with social distancing and safety protocols established by the Chelmsford School Committee Public Participation Guidelines. Anyone interested in speaking during the meeting, public input portion of the meeting was notified to the superintendent's office by yesterday afternoon. Been provided with these guidelines to assign a time to attend the meeting and speak. If anyone watching this meeting live has questions or comments to share, they're encouraged to email one of us during the meeting. We'll read their questions or comments during our second public input session at the end of the meeting. So, welcome to this meeting of the Chelmsford School Committee. Our first item on our agenda is approval of the minutes from our meeting on September 21st.
You're much better at it.
I move that the school committee accept the minutes of the regular school committee meeting of September 21st, 2021.
Second?
Okay, anybody have any corrections on the minutes? Okay, all in favor of approval? Aye. Okay, 4-0. Okay, next up, we have our student rep with us tonight. So we want to just introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Katrina Janakos, and I'm a senior. I was also one of the school committee reps for the past 2 years, I believe. So it's good to see everyone. And for news, tomorrow during Plus Block, all students 9 through 12 will be taking a survey from the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, which is done every 10 years. And it's all about the students' views on our school, and the results are used to guide goals for the next 10 years coming. Also, our pep rally has been scheduled for October 22nd, and it's going to be outdoors this year, and it's going to include a bunch of challenges and games, such as tug-of-war, musical chairs, and dog sledding. And the next day after, on the 23rd, is the senior Halloween dance, which will also be outside. We also have a new gym floor, which is super exciting, and I was in there today, and it's looking pretty good. Also, the school has been introduced to a new company called Paper, which is a 24-hour online tutoring site for all students, and everyone has their own login. So people can go into these accounts and text back and forth with these counselors to help them with their work.
Hi, everybody.
Wait, we're just going to move your mic to.
Oh, we need to give her a mic, sorry.
Okay.
Oh, we'll hear.
There we go. Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Evans. This is my first year being a student representative, so I'm really excited to be here, and thank you all for this opportunity. So some more news. For the seniors at CHS, the guidance department has started holding senior meetings so that students can start preparing for college or whatever else they want to do after CHS, whether it's going directly into the workforce or something else. I know I personally just had mine. It went really smoothly. And then in addition, the school has also hired a new person to work in the Career and College Readiness Center, Ms. Alexandra Cunningham, to work with kids on the new innovations pathways that the school has been implementing. So I know a lot of people who are super excited for that. Pride Block started this week on Tuesdays and Thursdays so that students can go and either get extra help or do some sort of enrichment. We had the activities fair last Thursday, which went super smoothly. I know a lot of freshmen who were super excited to go and get super involved and see all of the different clubs that were there. And finally, the Theater Guild is getting ready for the new musical, which is coming up in November. They are doing Pippin as their show, and I know I'm personally excited to see it. So, yeah, thank you all.
Thank you and welcome.
Yes.
Welcome aboard. We look forward to working with you this year.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else have anything for the?
I did see the new gym floor last night.
Yeah.
It is great. It's beautiful. They did a wonderful job. The stands, the floor. I like the line in the center of the basketball court, and you don't have the ridges anymore where balls go flying everywhere in dead spots.
Where's the fun of that? Yeah.
Really nice job.
No home court bounce anymore.
Yeah, no. Okay. All right, any other good news?
Just one other piece of good news. First of all, that's why I love when the reps are here, because I'm like, delete, taking everything right off of my list. So just to add, at South Royal Elementary School, the Chelmsford Police Department had greeted the students kindergarten through fourth grade with Officer High Five Day. Apparently, there was a line of police cars in front of the building, which I'm sure didn't, bother anybody as they drove by. But Terry Gilbert, who's the new principal down there, wanted to make connections with the Chelmsford Police and would like to do monthly things with the police just to, show kids that they're there to help. So this was a nice little event for them. And, we're in our, 6th week of school, so we're kind of getting on a roll and cooking and, we're going to keep going and keep working with our students, and it's been so far so good. Knock on wood.
Great. Anybody else have anything they want to share, good news-wise? Okay, all right, we'll move on to public comment. I don't believe we have any registered speakers tonight, so.
We don't.
Next up, we're into new business.
All right, a few items on a new business this evening. Just so everyone can kind of know and have the dates. We reported at our last meeting, the individuals from Durham Whittier Architects came and did a little bit of a presentation about what some of the work they're going to be doing this fall with us are. And there were two opportunities for kind of widespread general community input. The first is this Thursday evening at 6 o'clock. It's going to be held at the Chelmsford Elks. And this is an open session to the public. Anyone is invited, just residents from town, parents, students in the school system, particularly older, say, high school students. If you'd like to come, they're going to give an overview of the work that they had done back in 2015-16 with us. Take a look at our grade configurations, how we're utilizing our current schools. They work with NASDAQ to do enrollment projections to kind of show where we're currently at student-wise and where that's going to be going in the years to come. And then talking about some of our short-term capital wants and needs in the school department, and also a longer-term new building project. And talking about prioritization around what that should be. So that work is going to start again. Again, two big opportunities for the public if they'd like to come. The first is this Thursday, October 7th at 6 o'clock, and that is at the Chelmsford Elks. Another message went out today to remind individuals of that. And then there will be on the 20th, there is another date that was in the packet. That's going to be more for our middle school staff and students. We're going to be doing some work with them in particular. They likely would be a high school one. After that, we just don't have a date on that yet. That'll be more internal work. And then we'll be coming back to the public again on Tuesday, November 9th. So that'll be another open session to the public. Likely is going to be at the Chelmsford Elks. We just want to see how this first one goes, and then we'll lock in a location. But definitely the night of Tuesday, the 9th, will be for Durham Whittier to come back, review the work that they've done over the course of this last month and a half or so, talk about some potential options for us to look at, and that'll be another opportunity for public input. And then I did list the 4 different dates that they're going to be coming, although it wouldn't be like a public meeting. They'll be coming to the school committee meeting, so this will be recorded. They obviously were with us last month on September 21st, but they'll be back on November 16th, and then our 2 meetings in December to provide updates to the committee with regard to where the work is. So if you're not able to attend one of the 2 public sessions yourself, if you're watching a school committee meeting, you'll be able to see and hear some of the updates from Durham Whittier. But those are the key public dates to just kind of get out there for the public to know about.
Right, any questions, Donna?
So somebody from the Southborough PTO last night had a question about whether or not these public input sessions will be televised.
They're going to be recorded.
Okay.
We could not do them live, but telemedia is going to be there Thursday night, and they're going to record the session. And it will probably take us about a day and a half to be able to get the link up on the website. But we will have a link to the recorded session on the website. Chris O'Donnell, our communications individual, is working with us on the website to bring back and kind of post more prominently the report that we did the last time. Okay. So there will be a page dedicated to this facilities reassessment, and we'll have all the links to the different meetings and the video there. So it will not be live on Thursday, but it will be recorded and posted to the website.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I did have another question from somebody else about that, but it wasn't whether it would be televised, it was whether it would also be available on a link to be able to join the meeting virtually.
Not for Thursday evening. Thursday evening would either just be in person or recorded, but we didn't have the capability with them to do a virtual and present at the same time. Okay.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right, so look forward to that. All right, next up, school committee workshop.
Yep, so we needed to reschedule our workshop from last week. I had sent an email out to the committee members. Everyone got back to me, and everyone can meet next Thursday, the 14th, not this coming Thursday, a week from Thursday. So we did update the agenda. The agenda stays the same, but Paul Ash was able to confirm that evening. All 5 members were as well. So we'll lock in Thursday, the 14th at 6 o'clock here for that work session. So same agenda, but I just wanted to let you know that that did get confirmed.
Great. All right, next thing is, I believe, the MASC resolutions.
Correct.
Yeah, so every year, MASC has their conference, and they have a meeting and have different resolutions that they put before the body to see if they want to approve them and move them forward. So as a committee tonight, we'll take a look at those resolutions, and we'll vote as a committee how we stand on these. And then we also need to select a delegate to attend that meeting. It's Saturday, the 6th, I believe, and it's virtual. So once the delegate is picked, they will register and get login information for all that, and they will then vote however the committee sees fit tonight. So we'll just go through the resolutions, and if we want to discuss them, we can, and we can have a vote on each one individually. All right, so the first resolution, Resolution 1, dedicated funding for school-based clinics and services. I'm just going to read the resolution itself. Be it resolved that MASC supports proposals that will establish dedicated funding for school-based physical health and mental health clinics and services. Rationale: maintaining physical, social, and emotional wellness in students translates in establishing an optimal learning environment that sets up students for future excellent health standards, in addition to decreasing absentees in school discipline referrals, reduction in Medicaid expenditures, reduce inappropriate emergency room use, decrease pregnancies, and increase overall physical and mental health. So that is the resolution. They're looking to, for support, looking for funding for school-based health clinics. So we'll take a motion.
I move, well, I guess, how am I going to word this?
Move,
Because we're asking yes or no on
Yeah.
this, right?
I guess you'd move to support the
right,
resolution.
yeah, and then we can vote no if we
All
want to,
right.
yeah.
Okay, I move that the Chelmsford School Committee support resolution number 1 for the MASC conference, dedicated funding for school-based clinics and services.
Second, okay. Any discussion, any questions on the resolution?
I don't think in theory it's a bad idea, okay? The problem is whether or not it can practically be done and it's sustainable. So those are the 2 concerns I have. But furthermore, one of the concerns that I've had, and I've had this all along, and we've talked about it with our state reps, is it's all fine and good to bring this under the umbrella of the schools. But, give us the money, okay? I mean, you're asking us to do more and more. Now you're asking us to provide health and mental health services on site, which is fine. I think it's a great idea. But, I don't want, first, this to be, brought online and then be the first thing that's cut. I think if it's going to be a priority, it has to stay a priority. And I think that the other thing too is that we have to recognize that schools are becoming full-service institutions. We are not just institutions of education anymore. And that we have to make sure that the money comes along with that.
Right.
I also think that this makes it very difficult for schools. I mean, you'd have to hire all kinds of professionals that are not right now part of the hiring process for schools. And would this bring in the Board of Health, many other things? It's a great idea.
One of the ways that we do it in Lowell is Lowell Community Health is based
Right.
in the school. So I think
Right.
that eliminates some of the problems around having to hire additional personnel. But,
don't have
as
that
I
here.
said, we're very fortunate to be able to have that, but
We don't have that available readily in town, and I think that makes it difficult for many school districts, but
Right. And I agree, a lot of these resolutions we talked about before are very, in theory, they're great ideas, but just when push comes to shove, getting funding for this type of stuff isn't a priority for the state government, really. So, I mean, if we want to support it, that's fine, and, have MASC push it on their end, but, you know, whether it comes to fruition or not, that's gonna be a whole other ballgame, so. All right, want to take a vote? All right, all in favor of supporting Resolution 1? Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, so we support Resolution 1. All right, Resolution 2, homework gap and Wi-Fi internet access. So the resolution, be it resolved that the Massachusetts Association of School Committee file for and support legislation which seek to provide free broadband internet to all K-12 students in Massachusetts. Be it further resolved that MASC supports federal initiatives and legislation to improve national high-speed broadband internet infrastructure, expansion of the FCC's E-rate program to include homes of K-12 students, or any other steps to expand free access to reliable high-speed broadband to students of our nation.
I move that the Chelmsford School Committee approve Resolution Number 2, homework gap and Wi-Fi internet access.
Second.
Great. All right, any comments, questions on this one? And another great idea, will the federal government, the state government be able to come up with the money to do that? It's a whole other question. But I think, you know, if that could come to be, then that'd be great. Then we wouldn't have some of the problems that happened during the pandemic where people didn't have access and they didn't have computers to go remote, so. All right, any other thoughts? Okay, we'll take a vote. All in favor of Resolution 2? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, 4-0. All right, Resolution 3, IDA Full Funding Act. Therefore, be it resolved that the Massachusetts Association of School Committees calls upon the Massachusetts Congressional District to reintroduce and promote the passage of the IDEA Full Funding Act.
I move that the Chelmsford School Committee accept Resolution 3, IDEA Full Funding, IDEA Full Funding Act.
Second.
Okay, any comments, questions? So IDEA's been in place for a while. It just, what, is it not funded or partially funded, or do we?
I think this gets into the, you know, just the whole matter of, like within special education, you know, how much localities have to pay for services and
Right.
whatnot. I think this is more federal as well, just trying to push for, you know, full funding of like these unfunded mandates. Again, conceptually, I think it's a good idea. For all practical purposes, I just don't know how realistic it is.
Sensing a theme here. Any other questions? All right, we'll take a vote. All in favor of Resolution 3? Aye. Anybody opposed? Nope. Okay, Resolution 4, recess. Therefore, be it resolved, the Massachusetts Association of School Committees support legislation, current bills S-383, H-695, calling for at least 20 minutes of uninterrupted, supervised, safe, and unstructured free play recess during each day, which cannot be excluded from structured learning time requirements and may not increase the total number of hours required in the school year for Massachusetts elementary school students.
I move that the Chelmsford School Committee accept Resolution Number 4, recess.
Second.
Questions, comments? So as I read it, I guess recess now does not count as time on learning. And what I will read this to be is they want recess to count as time on learning, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it's so that they don't have to extend the school day. Right.
What's that?
It's so that they don't have to extend.
Right, no,
the
no, no,
school day.
I know, but I think, yeah, the crux of it is they want to not exclude recess from time on learning, which,
I guess, I mean, for us, we
Right.
we meet it, so it's not like a concern for us.
right,
But I don't know, I mean, it could be read to be that way, so that it's almost included in structured learning, or they're saying they don't want to extend the school day, that, you know, if you can accommodate it, great. If not, you still have to get the 20 minutes in and not have it impact structured learning time. Like I said, for us, we exceeded, so it's not a concern. But, you know, globally, I don't know how this would impact other school districts.
right. Any questions?
I think it's necessary. I think elementary kids should be outside.
Oh, yeah, oh, absolutely. No, I agree. All right, we'll vote. All in favor of Resolution 4?
Aye.
4-0. Okay, Resolution 5, zero tolerance policies. Be it resolved that the Massachusetts Association of School Committees call upon the legislature to enact and amend legislation, current bills S-344, H-64, to encourage the use of restorative, therapeutic, and educational approaches to incidents whenever possible over the use of zero-tolerance policies in order to provide students the best chance to remain in the public school systems of the Commonwealth.
Sorry,
That's
I
okay.
was a little distracted there. I move that the Chelmsford School Committee accept the MASC Resolution Number 5, zero tolerance policies.
Second.
Second. Questions?
I'm not sure why we're going with, we have to get rid of this and do the other one. Why can't we do both?
Same question. You know,
Because I'm sorry, I mean, granted, the majority of suspensions in Massachusetts probably don't involve violent, criminal, or drug-related incidents, but they do occur.
Right.
And I think for those, you have to have a zero tolerance policy.
I wouldn't want to eliminate that
No,
ability, to say, this is a danger to the school, we can't have this student in here anymore. Got
Because
thoughts?
we are responsible for the safety of all students.
Right,
it does say whenever possible,
yeah.
so I think
Yeah.
that's the out,
Yeah.
you know?
It's,
I don't know where this goes, to be honest with you. As reading through these like legislatively, I don't know, where this one will get action or not. I tend to believe it wouldn't, because I think there are certain offenses that just have a consequence that is black and white. I think districts have a lot of control, even within the handbook, and how they actually deal with discipline and student matters, that most things aren't, zero tolerance. So I think they do kind of have that ability for you to take a look at the situation and the student and take in other factors. Yeah, I don't have a strong opinion. I don't think this is going to go anywhere. But I do think there are times where zero tolerance does come into play.
So I do think that, using restorative justice, I think that's fine. I think a lot of
Right.
districts are moving in that direction, as well as taking a look at the therapeutic and educational needs of the students that are having these discipline referrals. But it does, as I said, say in here, whenever
Right,
possible.
that's a good point, yeah.
So I don't think it's completely eliminating it.
Right, any other thoughts? Yeah,
this is another idea. It's wonderful. Everybody should aim for this. It's
All right.
terrific.
so we'll vote, all in favor of Resolution 5? Aye. Anybody opposed? 4-0. All right, Resolution 6, alternative to MCAS. Yeah, I knew it'd get Linda's attention.
Eliminate MCAS?
Yeah. Therefore be it resolved, the Massachusetts Association of School Committees call upon the legislature to establish a commission to research and analyze alternative means for students to demonstrate academic achievement, which can be used to satisfy graduation requirements for individual students and accountability standards for Massachusetts public schools and schools districts.
Oh, sorry, I was fascinated by this one. I move that the Chelmsford School Committee accept the MASC Resolution Number 6, alternative to MCAS.
Second.
Okay,
Do you want to triple it, quadruple it, or do anything like that?
Yeah.
Our student reps? Yes, I knew it.
any comments, thoughts?
So this is only calling for a study, a group to study this, a committee to
right.
study it. So they're not actually asking for the elimination of, and I think it makes sense to have somebody take a look at it.
Right, and it's looking for alternatives, not, it doesn't, not saying eliminate MCAS, but there are definitely groups of students that the MCAS isn't gonna work for them, and I can tell you from personal experience, that, and it does, put them in a bad position, so, if they can come up with alternatives that work for those types of students, then I'm all for it, so.
Yeah, and maybe it's not even going to be an alternative. Maybe it will count, but to a lesser degree. You know what I'm saying? It's just as part of a, maybe this has got to be part of something, this whole graduation requirement that involves a variety of components, so.
I agree, should be studied, and I think that during these last 2 years of COVID, it's really raised into question why we're doing it and why we should continue to do it and so on, so I definitely study it.
Great. All right, anything else? All right, we'll vote. All in favor of Resolution 6? Aye. 4-0. All right, Resolution 7, school committees and receivership. Be it resolved that the Massachusetts Association of School Committees file for and support legislation which seeks to preserve the authority of the elected body, the school committee, as provided in MGL Chapter 69, Section 1K, by deleting the words "and school committee" as noted, by inserting the following: Nothing in this section shall permit the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education or the Commissioner to remove the authority of the school committee. Be it further resolved, that MASC support local initiatives and legislation to restore school committee oversight of the superintendent and/or receiver, including but not limited to goal-setting, performance review, and the evaluation process.
I move that the Chelmsford School Committee accept MASC Resolution 7, school committees and receivership.
Second.
Second. Okay, any questions, thoughts?
I think that, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
If you're elected them, you can't then just take that power away, you know what I mean? And
I agree.
not include them in the process.
I was just talking to somebody the other day, I was talking actually about the video that was shown the other night by the Diversity and Equity Committee, and they are very involved with Lawrence Public Schools, and said, you know, that'd be great for them to do, but the school committee there has no authority to do anything. I was just shocked, and you know, it was because they're in receivership, so they're elected, but they really don't serve any function. So I was, you know, I knew that receivership kind of changed things a little bit, but I didn't know it just took all the authority away from the school committee, which, you know.
You would seem that it would be, that they would want more of a partnership in the
Right.
process, as
Right.
opposed to eliminating them
Right.
altogether, right? So,
Because I would
I
think
don't-
they need,
I don't
don't
think,
care?
I don't think they do. I think, you know, if a district is identified for receivership, the state's basically taking over, and the state appoints the receiver, who is like your superintendent. The locality has no control over that. The DESI and the state, you know, don't want that individual reporting to a local board. So the school committee also kind of loses their power. They can continue to meet, but they can't tell the receiver what to do. The receiver is basically in charge of running the day-to-day operations of the school system. I totally get from the elected perspective why, and I think the state would come back and say, well, for us to have to have stepped in the first place, things weren't going in the right direction, so we need time to now come in and try to turn this around. Again, I don't,
yeah,
go ahead and support it. If I were on the school committee, I would support it too. It's just one of those things, I just don't know how practical it is. I don't know what kind of legs it's going to get
I guess
legislatively.
I don't understand why they would not include the school committee. If you think that the school committee's job is budget, policy, right? You still have to have those things happen,
Right.
right? So.
Right, but the state wants complete control
Right.
over the day-to-day operations. They don't want, I'm just telling you, for practical
Yeah.
purposes, they don't want to have to go to the school committee to get a budget approved. The state's going to come in and put a prescribed program in place and say, this is how we're going to run it, this is how we're going to fund it. You know, they wouldn't want the school committee putting a policy in place that's going to infringe on the duties or the rights of the receiver in any way. And the third, you know, responsibility for really kind of hiring and supervising the superintendent, the school committee isn't going to hire and supervise the receiver, the Department of Ed is. So it's just one of those situations. I mean, fortunately, it doesn't happen often. You know, it wouldn't happen here. I think the places that are probably bringing this forward feel like, you know, it is. It's more urban communities. It's more communities of color and whatnot. So I'm sure they feel disenfranchised by the whole process. Again, if I were in the school committee, I would support it too. I just don't know its, you know, its chances of getting any kind of action at the state level.
All right, any other questions on this one? All right, all in favor of supporting Resolution 7? Aye. Anybody opposed? All right, Resolution 8, electric school buses. Therefore, be it resolved, the MASC petition Congress to appropriate $30 billion for improving the electrical structure, infrastructure, and providing electric buses and charging stations.
I move that the Chelmsford School Committee approve MASC Resolution 8, electric school buses.
Second.
Okay, thoughts?
that come with bus drivers.
Can mandate they come with bus drivers.
That's
Yeah, yeah,
correct.
Or maybe it'd be autonomous, like, you know,
We want
the
self-driving.
Tesla, yeah,
And charging
self-driving.
stations.
Self-driving Tesla bus.
Yeah. Again, it'd be great if it could happen, but I don't know the likelihood of getting $30 billion for electric buses, but
Yeah, and I think, you know, I think we need to support the efforts of the committee that was put in place at the last town meeting around climate change, so.
Right. good point. All right, all in favor of Resolution 8? Aye. Anybody opposed? 4-0. Finally, Resolution 9, prohibiting the use of Native American mascots. Therefore, be it resolved that Massachusetts Association of School Committees supports legislation calling for regulations prohibiting public schools from using an athletic team name, logo, or mascot which names refers to or represents what is associated with Native Americans, including aspects of Native American culture and specific Native American tribes.
I move that the Chelmsford School Committee approve MASC Resolution 9, prohibiting the use of Native American mascots.
Second.
Thoughts?
I don't think this is something that belongs with MASC. This is something that should be, and I would hope, okay, that local, school districts would not use, I mean, it just goes without saying in this time that it is inappropriate, but I don't think it's something that we should get involved in.
I graduated from Tewksbury High, and I have been with friends, and we've gotten in arguments about it. In Tewksbury, which is inappropriate, the Redmond, it's real strong, it gets really nasty, the argument back and forth, as opposed to maybe the Wamosets, which was the tribe in Tewksbury, but I think Donna's right, it's up to the individual towns. It's amazing how divisive it is, and I mean, with friends who still live in Tewksbury, we don't discuss it, because they know where I stand and where they stand, and that's about as
Yeah, I know that
terrible as you can have.
it was, and it was horrible in Concord. I think there was at Concord Carlisle High School. Some students took it upon themselves in order to be able to push forward around a change for the name of the mascot, and it got very ugly. But ugly or not, I still think it's just not something that MASC should be stepping
It's a
into.
local decision.
It's a
It is
local
definitely
decision.
local.
You know,
And to tell you the truth, it involves more than just the school districts. It involves the whole town.
Right.
So,
Right.
it's inappropriate. I don't think
Definitely.
anybody's going to disagree about that, but
Hey, we'll take a vote. All in favor of supporting?
I don't know if Maria had something.
Well, I agree. I don't think it should be something that they should be taking up as an issue. I think it definitely should be an entire town or city that makes that decision.
It's amazing how strongly people feel.
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
just,
Oh, no.
especially, people have been there their whole lives and their families have been there, and, knowing it firsthand, it shouldn't be a group like MASC. It should be local because the repercussions.
To be honest with you, too, I think that scope is almost too narrow. If we're going
Right.
to step in, it should be way more than just Native Americans,
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
All right, we'll vote. All in favor of this resolution? All opposed? Okay, 4 against. All right, any volunteers to be our delegate? It is a virtual event on the Saturday, the 6th, I believe.
yeah, I don't mind being the delegate.
All right, we'll put you down as the delegate. Anybody want to be the alternate? Okay, Jeff? Okay, great. So Don will be the delegate.
Do you want me to sign this official delegate form?
I'll print it up after the meeting and get that for you.
Okay.
But we'll list Donna as the delegate, and Jeff, you said you'd do the alternate?
And Jeff. So, yeah, so that's pretty almost outside of the conference itself, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to just vote to approve that, though?
Sure, you want to vote, have a motion to approve Donna as the, I make a motion to approve Donna as our delegate to the MSC conference.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Donna, you're it.
Thanks.
Right.
Yeah, so this is different, because typically they hold it, on that
The
Friday
It's
afternoon.
Friday, yeah.
Friday,
So it's the Saturday after the conference is over, I believe.
We do have to vote Jeff to the alternate.
Oh, we have to vote Jeff, okay. I make a motion to vote Jeff as the alternate to the MSC conference.
Second.
Second, okay, all in favor? Aye.
Yeah, it seems like they're doing it differently this year.
Yeah, which is fine. Okay. All right, what's next?
Yep, let me just, next. All right, so you have some draft information in front of you this evening for the October 1 report. When I look back, this is something that we usually do in December, but just to kind of give you a quick sense of our enrollment at this point in time, I just wanted to share the information with you. Every district in the state is required on October 1st to submit their data to the state. Your total number of students that you're educating is what ultimately will be accepted by DESE, and that's what's used in the Chapter 70 funding formula. So when we find out, like in February, what our Chapter 70 state aid is going to be, it's predicated on the October 1 number from this fall. So I gave you just a report on overall district enrollment, and this is actually going to be significant because when we're at the Durham Whittier, the facilities review on Thursday evening, obviously they have these information. And last year was a little bit of a blip for us because of COVID, for every other district as well. So we were on a trajectory increasing. We actually dropped a couple hundred students last year on October 1 because we had students withdrawing to either homeschool or do a private parochial school or online school, something like that. So this year, we're now back up to kind of pre-pandemic numbers. So we're going back in the right trajectory. So you'll see our 2019 numbers when we look at the report on Thursday, will be high, right around the 5,000 figure. Last year, we dipped to about 4,800, and now we're back up just about 5,000. So we're back on track, and we're obviously going to pick up from there. But you do have just the general district enrollment, and that is as of last Friday. So this 5,025 students is what was reported to the state. Obviously, they'll go through a process and kind of vet that and make sure that Chelmsford isn't claiming the same student that Billerica is and whatnot, and they'll work that out behind the scenes. And then historically, what I do at this point of the year is just take those numbers from the DESI sheet, and again, this is draft at this point in time. It won't be finalized until December. And we plug in the numbers by grade level and by school. And then like on the first page of the report for the elementary schools, you can see, say at the Byam School, how many actual sections we're running. Our schools would normally be running 4 sections, 4 classrooms per grade level. You'll see some of them have 5. That's what we call a bubble section. And a bubble section will be because of higher enrollment at that particular grade level. And you'll see those bubbles move up through a system. We didn't have any exceptions. We didn't have any 5 across the board last year. So if you see a 4, that 4 would move up to the following grade level the following year. But we take the total enrollment by grade level and just divide it by the number of sections to get kind of an average number of students enrolled per section. Again, in the field, in the class, it might be slightly different. I'd emailed you out the actual enrollments for all the classes last week, but this is kind of the benchmark we use when we're looking at our averages. And then also sent along the 2 middle schools. So McCarthy and Parker now both at their grade levels have 8 sections of mainstream classrooms. Again, you do have to note some of the students that are included in the overall head count per grade level might be in separate programs during the course of the day. They might be in, say, like a life skills program or a PDD autism type program. We still include the total number in this because this just gives us a rough average of what's happening at each grade level. And then you can kind of dig into the actual individual course outlines at the schools. But this just gives you a sense of where we're at K-8 at this point in time. Obviously, the high school schedule is much more specific. You can't just take the number of students and divide it by number of teachers. So that's when you have to get into the individual course by course listing of how many students and what the cap was in the different courses. That was that information that I emailed out last time for you. So at this point of the year, again, we take all this information together as we start to do our planning for next year's budget for fiscal '23. We'll take a look at, again, K-8, particularly what our overall number of sections that we're going to offer per grade are to try to stay within the bounds that we try to live by, the recommended guidelines for each of the different classes. But this is the data that we have at this point in time. Again, it's draft. When we get the final numbers in December, we'll share that with you. But just wanted you to have a sense of where the data is as of today.
Questions?
So one of the things that concerns me about this report, and I know we don't have in front of us here in this information the exact number, but when you're looking at an average at McCarthy, Parker in the 7th and 8th grade, and even in the 5th grade at 26.1 average class size. And that goes forward then into the 7th and 8th grade. I mean, to me, I think that this is one of the things that keeps us at our best, is making sure that our class size meets the requirements that I always understood to be, let's keep it under 25 at least. I don't remember seeing the word average in there, but 25. To get to this average, it means that very likely we've got some classes with 27 or more. That's a bit worrying to me going forward, because I know the value of having 20 or so students in a class, but definitely below 25. And it's difficult to make those decisions because you're talking about positions and adding in teachers and figuring out reconfigurations.
Right.
But going into these discussions that we're going to have coming up, I think it's very important to keep this in mind, that to me, this is not really acceptable for these number of years for a student's time in our system. It's too large a class. And I understand that, when you're looking at elementary, you want to keep those definitely below 25 because you need more attention, you've got, smaller students, whatever.
Right.
But middle school, it becomes just as important to keep those sizes. They go together, these are students that stay together, and even becomes even more important because they may have less special attention from a particular assistant or whatever for some students. So I know what you're saying, that, some of these students go out for classes or don't stay in there the whole day and so on. But I still think that these numbers are high. And going forward for these number of years, it's high.
I think everything looks good, except McCarthy is high. Do you have any reason? What are we,
No, I mean, it really just happens to be, as you know, we still have this, and I can't quite put my hand on it because every year we take a look at the enrollment. And normally, like, what we think of is the majority of students from South Row and Center feed up to McCarthy. Harrington and Byam feed over to Parker. There's that little wedge of the community that actually goes, from Harrington, it goes to McCarthy instead of Parker. And it was there to really kind of balance the system. We have some numbers, obviously, just not balanced. Like, I looked at the fourth grade going up, and even if you just took those two schools, for next year, that would still have McCarthy being slightly higher than Parker. But then in the third grade, if you looked at those two schools, if you looked at Center and South Row feeding up at that point, it actually reverses. So McCarthy would be slightly higher than Parker. We would have to take a look at, like, if we were to do this and actually have it just be even across the board. Because if you looked at this and if you even had, say, in fifth grade, if all fifth graders happened to just be at one school, you would almost have, or 5 through 8, you would actually have your averages would all be under 25. We're just thrown off again by proximity where these people live and where they're actually going to school. That is something to certainly think about. I know that's something we're going to talk about, like in the Durham-Whittier study. I did know, it's not here, obviously, but I did email you out all of the actual enrollments for the different courses. And I had talked to you offline about a couple of these things. One of the things that we struggle with a bit is in 7th and 8th grade in particular, like the honors math, the accelerated math program. So you have, because we're maintaining the teaming concept at the 7th and 8th grade. So if you have a math teacher on your team, that teacher is basically teaching 4 courses out of the 4 groups of kids. We don't want to limit how many students actually can qualify and can achieve, say, that honors math class, but you might end up having 26, 27, 28 students want to take that class and they qualify to take the class, but you're only offering one section out of the 4 because you don't have enough sections to actually have the number go low. So what the teacher will normally do and the kids will normally do, it's not unusual to have that honors math section have higher than 25. It might have 26, 27, 28 students in it. But that's been acceptable because we don't want to actually cut it at, say, 25. And if I'm a teacher, it would be easier for me to probably teach with 2 or 3 extra honors students as opposed to having my numbers be lower in my lower level math classes. And this happens at the high school as well. Trying to have the most attractive numbers with some of the the students in the classes that probably just need a little bit more. We could look, even if the structure stays the same, like how important is that teaming concept in 7th and 8th grade at the two schools? Because if we didn't have that be the case, maybe we could offer 3 sections of honors math instead of 2, because you'd be now spreading it out over 8 different teachers as opposed to, 2 different teachers as opposed to just the 1 per team. And that might actually have the numbers go down. So there are a lot of things internally we can do. I think, what I'd like, again, not tonight, but like some feedback from you as to like what's really important. Is it getting to a particular number so that, if we want to have every single class be under 25, that's different than an average of 25. Because if you have an average of 25, you're going to have some classes that are lower and some classes that are higher. We obviously would have to do different things, and we would have to put other things on the table if we were going to have every single class, say, be under 25. But we don't have those class size enrollments now. We have targets, and we have average targets that we try to attract and attain. And I would have to then come back to you with all of these different kind of counter options to consider, given the, the staff and the students that we have now. Also, again, like I said, every year, we kind of look to see if we tweak or do we allow some parents to maybe, if you were at Harrington and you're targeted, not targeted, you were identified to go to McCarthy, but there's room at Parker, do we allow them to voluntarily do that? There are a bunch of different options we look at. It just hadn't worked in the past. And I think this year in particular, we're just a little bit more hamstringed because the numbers obviously even looked different in June than they did in July and August, because we were primarily, a lot of these students were remote a year ago. And now they're coming back and they're re-enrolling over the summer months when we don't have a lot of time to adjust and change. But again, this is good information, I think, to just kind of get out there now. This is our draft info. And I sent you all that detailed information, but as we get closer to December, and I'll give you the final, and then when we start talking about budget for next year, this is stuff that we, need to surface, if you want me to create a budget a particular way to make, particular size caps or averages.
I think, I could be wrong, but I don't think you meant remote. I think you meant homeschooled, right?
I'm sorry, did I say remote?
Yeah. But you meant
No,
homeschooled.
homeschool that may
Yeah.
have come back. Or
Then they came back,
Private
right.
parochials that have come back.
Right, okay.
Correct.
Right, because I think that's an important distinction. We had a lot of kids that were remote, but they were still enrolled in the Chelmsford.
I didn't mean remote, I'm
I
sorry.
just wanted to make sure that was clear.
No, I appreciate
The other thing too is, I don't think it's a bad idea, but I think that probably the first place that we should start is, maybe polling the teachers to see, what their, what ideas they may be amenable to going forward. Because, for example, if we moved away from the team concept, but it was something that they didn't feel was a good idea, even if it did reduce their numbers, then that may be a direction that we don't want to go in.
Yeah, it's a trade-off, right?
Right.
Because we can't have it both ways. So
Right,
if we want the
right.
numbers to go down, we'd have to put certain things on the table.
Right.
If people don't want that, then we would have to have higher numbers.
Exactly, and I think that, the numbers are high, and I think we have to take a look at it, but they're the ones who are gonna be in the classroom every day, so, if they think that some of these ideas are, something that we should pursue, then we can, and if they don't, and they recognize that the numbers are gonna stay high, then that's fine too, but, they're the ones that have to teach these kids, so I wanna make sure that it's doable for them.
Right.
I think input would be very good and try to make new decisions to try to get these number situations resolved. I know that some people have told me that there are 30 students in some classes and 31 in one of the classes at McCarthy. I think that that's really too high. And it's something that needs to be studied and figure out how to resolve the problem going forward. Yeah, and if it was just one, because when you look at average, definitely, to get to that 26, whatever, you've got to have quite a few with 27, 28, and so on. So it's very important to return to this when we're looking at budget going forward and after having the coming discussions. I think for this year, there's probably not much that can be done other than providing additional assistance into the classroom. And, to make sure that the students get what they're supposed to get. And given that, if staff is actually very difficult to find at this time. So probably not something we can, but looking
Yeah,
going
this,
forward.
the thing is, this isn't like new or just isn't happening this year. This has been pretty consistent. You know, our middle schools are, you know, the 24 to 26 is not unusual as an average. You know, even when you look year over year, this is pretty traditionally what the numbers have been.
Right, so I think, but they're getting higher. This year is a bit higher than
It's a
what,
100-person difference, that's why, too. You know, McCarthy has 100 more students in
that's
Parker. So like I
correct.
said, it's that whole balancing of where it's coming from year to year. So you might say, oh, if we move this route over here, but then, you know, all of a sudden now Parker has 100 more. So
So
that's where the difficulty is.
But this is where I think that the input from the teachers matters, okay? Because you may have a classroom of 30 kids. You may have 5 that are pulled out for, you know, various portions of the day. Or you may find that they're incredibly, calm, engaged group of students, and 30 doesn't matter. I mean, sometimes 30 can be, preferable to 22 who are, are having a difficulty getting engaged and things like this. So I think that we have to hear from the teachers about, is this, 30 not manageable, or is this 30 manageable?
I agree, because I would take 28 honors chem students over 22.
But I would say that each year you can't choose which students you're gonna have, so.
No,
Yeah,
but
as a
that's why I
teacher.
think we need the input from the teachers, about, and maybe we do have to take a look at that the higher number classes, maybe that they have students who may need less support, for example, or, that if it's, 30 students at the beginning of the year and the teacher, lets administration know it's 30 and it's manageable, 30 not manageable, then we have to look at adding additional resources.
And again, we can put caps on some of these programs too, but that's just going to limit who actually gets to take a
Right.
particular course.
Yeah, and I don't want to see that.
What's that?
Yeah,
Oh, no, but I
yeah.
mean, that's another reality, because then that would actually even out your numbers more.
Right.
And if you're looking at, say, that 25 or 26 being the max, you can make that happen, but you are going to take choice away from kids.
Right.
So that's just another factor. But again, I provide this as, kind of draft preliminary data. And again, you have all the more sophisticated, behind the scenes, class by class data. But these are the averages that we use as we're doing our work. And again, these are numbers that you'll be seeing in the presentation come Thursday night with the facility study. So just so you have that in front of you.
Okay. All right, any other questions on enrollments? Okay, report on opening of
Yeah,
schools.
so I've got some opening of school updates for you in the packet tonight. Linda's going to help us present it. We can move to slide number 1, please. So again, good night, ladies.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night. Thank you very much for coming.
Interrupts.
Oh, I
They were
didn't
trying to go
so.
quietly and you just called them out.
Oh, sorry. It was not
So we'll
intentional.
go back to the first one.
All right, have a good night.
Good night.
So again, just for your information purposes, we've been, kind of tracking the number of students in town that are vaccinating for COVID. We're still at the point where it's only 12 and older are able to vaccinate at this point. We had a few more students over the course of the last 2 weeks increase from last time's data, which is 2 weeks ago. We had another 34 students in the 12 to 15 category vaccinate. We had another 14 at the 16 to 19-year-old category get their first vaccine. Again, I'm very happy that people are continuing to do it, but it's not really moving our overall percentages too high. We're still at 66% of all 12 to 15-year-olds in town, and this is in town, this isn't just the Chelmsford Public Schools, are fully vaccinated, and 82%, which is good. We're really doing pretty well with our 16 to 19-year-olds are fully vaccinated, and that's something we're working on. We did talk to Peggy, our school nurse coordinator, about potentially trying to get an additional vaccination site up and going, or a clinic. So I think that's likely over the next, a couple of weeks or a month, particularly as we get into, we're hoping, 5 to 12-year-olds or 5 to 11-year-olds will be able to qualify soon. We want to be ready for that when they are eligible. So still making progress, it's just slow at this point in time. I have to say, families for the most part have been pretty good about giving us and sharing the vaccination data, so that's being updated in X2. And we're able to track that, obviously, when we have a case in the school to determine close contacts and whatnot. So we're happy with that information sharing. Next slide is updated participation numbers for our pool testing and test and stay. We had another 150 students over the last 2 weeks enroll in pool testing, which is great. And we had another 377 students sign up for test and stay. Again, that's very good. The theme continues to be, however, and no matter how many times I say it, people seem surprised. If you do not sign up for test and stay when you're identified as a close contact, that first time you're identified as a close contact, your only option is to quarantine. If you have signed up for test and stay, then you at least have that available as an option. So we're highly encouraging people to sign up for test and stay. You still have the option of determining whether you want to avail yourself of test and stay or quarantine, but you do not have that option if you haven't signed up. You're automatically having to quarantine. So we're still pushing that, and what happens is when it happens and someone's identified as a close contact, they're having a quarantine for that first time, they're immediately going on and registering, but it takes a couple of days to get all the consents in, so they're really not set up until the second time they were ever to be considered a close contact.
Interesting.
So we're still pushing that.
I went to center school PTO and this whole pool testing and test and stay came up. And people were just, on test and stay, just weren't sure how it was gonna work for the elementary school. Like, could the kids take a bus? Where were they gonna go in the morning? Does the parents have to drive in with them? They have to stay with the kid to see if they're testing? So they would, those are things I wouldn't have thought of, because
Yeah.
I know at the high school, you just come in, you go to the nurse's office.
Right.
So they were just unsure about some of these things, and they hadn't started doing it yet, so they really couldn't say, this is how we're doing it, so.
Yeah, it's the same at the elementary level, so students can take the bus to school, so even before they know.
Yeah.
So you would take the regular bus in. If you're identified as a close contact and you opt for test and stay, you would just report to a particular area where the school nurse would be. They would participate in the test and stay protocol. You'd do the swabbing, you'd wait your 15 minutes. If you're negative, you go back to class for the day as regular. If you were to test positive, then your parent would be called and you would have to come and pick them up at the school. But it's the same elementary, middle, and high school. And we'll get to that in a second with some of our numbers, but I mean, we're having good participation in it, and our results have been pretty positive on that. But it is the same at the elementary as it is the middle level. So I keep pushing out in the weekly messaging. You can still sign up for pool testing, and you can sign up for test and stay at any time. So we're still encouraging that. And like I said, we've got very good numbers. They're continuing to go, so we're happy with that. Next slide. So last week was our first pool testing week. So it took us a little bit of time with our vendor to get up and going. We did our first round of tests last Tuesday, and then we did our second round on Wednesday because we can't fit all the schools into one particular day. So over that 2-day period between staff and students, we tested 1,011 students, and out of that 1,011, we had one positive case. So that's obviously a very low test rate. We're very happy that we've got that data back. What I also just messaged Friday is, as happy as I am that, we only had one case out of 1,000, I'd still like more people to be participating in the pool testing to kind of cast a wider net and be able to identify potential cases before they have the ability to spread within a school. So we keep pushing that pool testing message. But only 1 out of 1,000, or a little over 1,000 tests came back positive. So that was very good news, and that was in our first week. So in addition to our regular COVID dashboard that we have on the district website, we have a second dashboard now for pool testing because some people are interested to track that. So we'll just keep adding to that each week and keeping track of our results. But one positive pool, not a positive pool, one individual out of a pool came back positive last week. So again, very low rate. When it comes to test and stay, I don't have the numbers by week for you. This is something that we're tracking by month. So Peggy sent over for the month of September for students who opted to participate in the test and stay program at all schools, K to 12. The nurses administered 709 tests, tests on site. Out of that 709, 12 came back positive. Still a very low percentage of positivity. So these were students that, were identified as a close contact of someone who tested positive, and ultimately 12 came back out of the 709 and tested positive. The good news on that is we obviously identified 12 cases before it had the ability to spread further within the school. And, 697 students didn't have to stay home and quarantine. They were allowed to keep coming to school each day as long as they participated in the BINEX testing and they stayed in school. So I think, that's kind of a good news story on both fronts. And again, that's something that the nurses are keeping track of on a monthly basis. So each month I'll add the number of tests that they performed just to track that positivity rate.
So is that 709 individual or 709 tests? Because each individual is going to get tested for several days, right?
Correct. So it was 709 total tests.
Okay.
So the same individual
Yep.
may account for multiple
Yep.
of the 709.
So 5 days?
7.
7 days. 7 days.
So, given these numbers that we just went over, we're looking at 800, we've got confirmation that 869 have been vaccinated at the high school level.
What's that?
Is it 869 vaccination?
Oh, I didn't get that yet.
Oh, we didn't get to that yet. Okay.
You want me
Because
to
I'm
do that?
trying to figure out, increasing the pool testing, the test and stay and adding people to the pool testing, I don't think it's that large a number that, for the high school. It's mostly at the middle school and the elementary that would need to sign up to do this, because you've got, if you get to the next slide, then I'll
You
pull,
want me to do the next slide and you can do
yeah,
it? Okay.
and then do the numbers.
And we can come back to talk about any three of these slides if you want to. Just the actual vaccination data. So this is individuals, parents mostly, who have shared with us their students' vaccination status. So at the high school, 869 of our students have shared that they have been vaccinated. So that's about 65% of the high school. At the two middle schools, it's obviously 24% and 23% at Parker McCarthy, both good share rates, but only half of the school, about half of the school is even eligible for the vaccine at this point. So I'm not surprised that those numbers are so low.
Right.
We do continue to, again, get vaccinations in every couple of days. I'll look at the system and we'll end up having some additionals come in. Outside of the system, we have had some individuals who have just presented a copy of their vaccine card to the school nurse, which is fine too. The school nurse can take it that way and put the information in the system. But that's stuff that we're keeping up on. So at this point in time, about 65% of our student population at the high school is fully vaccinated.
So you've got 869 fully vaccinated that we have verified, that it shared it with us, so thank
They
you,
voluntarily shared.
right? 408 enrolled in test and stay as of this report. You've got individuals enrolled in test and stay protocol at the high school, 408. Now, that's students only, or does that include staff?
Hang on a second, I'm gonna go back. Which slide do you want?
That's on the pool testing participation per school.
That is only students.
That's only students, so you add 869 plus 408, you've got 1277, a total enrollment of 1344, correct?
Correct.
So you've got 67 unaccounted for. That's the total that could come in to either verify vaccination or be part of pool testing participation, because what we've been saying is, don't participate in this if you're vaccinated. You're not encouraging it.
Correct. You
So
do,
there's probably no double dipping. If that's so, then it's only 67 people, students unaccounted for.
you do have, there are a couple of errors, small errors. I mean, these aren't like big numbers. But there are some kids who, I'm sure by mistake, who are vaccinated, but also signed up for test and stay. Because some people didn't understand that if they were vaccinated, they wouldn't have to not do it. And they were concerned that they would be identified as a close contact and then not have to go out. So I'm sure there's a handful of students. I just haven't quantified it. But I agree with you. The number is not that big that we haven't heard from one way or the other. But you potentially could have had someone who did do that.
Okay, so that's at the high school. So we're looking at increasing it as much as possible at the middle school and for this pool testing participation and at the elementary level.
The poll testing? Yeah, I mean, the target has always been the unvaccinated population. Even though the vaccinated population can participate, the target really is unvaccinated. So that would be your elementary schools, all of them.
Right,
And at least the 5th and 6th, and maybe even some of the 7th grade at the middle schools.
right.
That's like the real target. Again, anyone can participate, and we have some individuals who are vaccinated who still participate, which is fine. But our target was really anyone who's unvaccinated. Correct.
And just to reiterate on the test day too, it's gotta be a school contact to be able to participate, because we're still getting some emails about outside contacts and wanted to.
There's nothing we can do about that, right?
That's, I just wanted
No, I know,
to
yeah.
reiterate
Any
again.
way we can expand the test and stay so that, let's say that, it's a hockey team, for example, I think that was one of the examples that we received. And a child tests positive,
Right.
and then another person's identified as a close contact, now they have to quarantine. But,
No, it's a state,
can't?
it's not us, it's a state rule.
okay.
And the thought process behind, and I get it.
You understand what I'm saying?
Oh, I 100%
These are little
do.
kids, I'd hate them
I
to
know.
see missing school, if
So-
there's some way we could get them in.
And this is what's gonna happen. This is gonna be, you're on a football team.
All right.
You're on a travel basketball team or something like that. Someone's positive and you're a close contact.
Yeah.
The state is only authorizing the test and stay protocol for in-school exposure. Because in their mind, the in-school exposure happened with mitigation factors that they can control and they know. So they know in schools, everyone right now has a mask on. That is not the case with, say, an outside basketball team who's playing. On buses right now, everyone has to wear a mask. You might be going with your buddy to a basketball game, and you're driving together in the same car, you probably don't have a mask on. There's just a higher chance of, when you're identified as a close contact, coming back positive if it was from a non-school exposure.
But we could have parents sending their kids to school, regardless, right? I mean, they could have been on this hockey team and there's, may have been exposed and they're just gonna send them back to school and we have no way of knowing and no
That's
way of
correct.
testing.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. I'm not saying it's your fault, Jay, I'm just saying, it just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, especially, at the elementary school level where they don't have the option of being vaccinated.
Right. I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm
I
just,
know.
I'm just telling you kind of.
venting.
What's that?
I'm venting.
I hear you.
It's just frustrating because, these are these little kids, they have to make a choice between, their extracurricular activities and their education. I think they need. There's no need to to do that to me, Jane. Gong me and like that, all right?
I had
You
nothing
didn't
to
need
do
to
with
do
that.
that, all right?
You've gone over your time with it.
Kelly West, play the music.
May have been on a little bit of a filibuster, but still nonetheless, okay?
No, I absolutely hear what you're saying, and I mean, I understand it, it's just, it's not even an option for us, and I will get, 2 or 3 parent either calls or emails every week because, I feel very bad, like, if their child was identified as a close contact in an out-of-school type thing.
And they're following all the rules, and they're
Oh, I
following
know
all the
that, and
rules,
they're
right?
quarantining, they're missing school, they can't even remote in this year like
Right.
last year. I totally get it, it's just, it's not even within our purview. This is the state, basically, because they're the ones that approved the whole test and stay thing. Their panel of medical doctors did not recommend that.
So I was just gonna ask this, okay, so why don't we not listen to the state? Why don't we use some of our COVID money to fund test and stay for elementary school kids?
Right, but test and stay, and even doing the testing, is all being done under the auspices of your medical doctors signing off on the ability for the staff to be able to give these tests. We're not authorized to give the test to people that we're not approved to.
All right, I was just trying to think of some way that we could include these kids.
I know.
So in line with that, the questions I've been getting is exactly where is this stated in the DESI guidelines on, is it part of the pool testing guidelines? Where is it? Because
On who can participate in test and stay?
about, it's limited to only spread within the schools.
It's in all the DESI documentation. I can email it to you. And
Okay, I mean, you don't have to, I trust that what you're
Right.
saying to me, it's in the DESI things, but people are questioning, where is it in the DESI stuff? Because
Yep.
it's impacting quite a few people.
No, I
because of
get it.
families,
I get it.
especially if we've got more than one child in the school. So it makes it difficult, but that's what the
It
question
is
is, where
it's
is
in
it?
the different DESI protocols. I'll flag it for you and just email it to you so that you can share it if someone reaches out to
Okay.
you. We're not making it up. It's just that this was part of their whole return to school protocol, and that it had to be an in-school exposure, not an outside school exposure.
I mean, Commissioner Riley does understand, though, that some parents may just, opt not to follow these protocols, right? Send their kids to school and put more kids at risk because we didn't do the test and stay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure I was clear on that.
The next time I'm chatting with him, I'll bring that
I
up.
wish you would, please.
Yeah.
No, and I get it. I mean, this is all on a system. It's parents, if you're identified, you told your child's a close contact. If I'm told that, I'm gonna have my child stay home. Unfortunately, other parents, I agree with you, aren't, and they're gonna, potentially harm others, which we don't wanna see happen. But we don't have the ability to perform a test that we're not authorized to do. I think that would jeopardize the whole program.
Just changing gears a little bit, based on this 65% number, we're still well from the threshold of even having a discussion about the
We-
80% thing. So I know they moved the date on that.
They moved the date from originally October 1st to at least October 15th. And then we still don't have clear guidance from them with regard to how to categorize, how to count your positivity rates. But even with we're eking closer.
Yeah.
But we're still not at the 80%. So I figured let them, throughout the course of October, figure out how they're gonna wanna certify this data. We'll continue to collect it with the nurses. And then probably at the November meeting, I'll keep giving you updates as we go. We can take a look at that.
This 65% is about students only.
Students
So
only.
do we have a different system for tracking staff vaccinations? Again, it must be voluntary, but
We do.
we do. And so we know that percentage as well in each school?
Yeah, I haven't calculated it, but we have the,
Okay.
yeah, most of the staff have also been very good about sharing their vaccination status with us. So it's a matter of it's recorded separately in the system, but it's just a running report.
Now, I've seen some surrounding neighboring towns where I believe the Board of Health has issued a masking requirement in all public places. If that were to happen, does it supersede what happens in the school? I would think it applies to everybody in a public place in a town.
Well, right now you have the DESI mandate, right?
Right.
Chelmsford Board of Health is only recommending, they're not requiring. So if the DESI mandate ever went away, but the Chelmsford Board of Health ever actually required it as opposed to recommending it, we would have to follow the Board of Health recommendation.
Okay.
Requirement, not recommendation.
Thank you.
Anything else on vaccination before we move on? All right.
Yeah, let me just slide through. And then just lastly, again, just to remind us, we are updating our, the COVID dashboard each week. As I mentioned, in addition to the regular COVID dashboard, we have the pool testing dashboard now that's on this website. We've got some good feedback about that. People like to watch that. We actually, in the overall dashboard last week, and I think you'll see this coming week as well, our numbers have gone down quite a bit. I think we reported like 22 cases at the high school last week, and 2 weeks ago, and this past week, we were down to 5. So I do think we're gonna see some ebbs and flows throughout the course of the fall. But this will be updated each week on the district website.
So some of the feedback that we're receiving is that people think that the dashboard is wildly inaccurate because they're hearing that there are many more cases in the schools than is being reported on the dashboard. I was kind of wondering if you could explain how we get these numbers?
Yeah, I don't know where that would be coming from, quite honestly. So every single case that we get confirmed within the school is reported through the school nurse to Peggy, our coordinator of school nursing. It's confirmed with the Chelmsford Board of Health. And then Peggy has to report on a weekly basis by school the number of positive student and staff cases to DESI. She then also reports that to me for the dashboard. So on Thursdays, when that information comes out, we go and verify to just make sure that our numbers jive on the two, and they do. So we are reporting every single case of a staff or student positive in the schools. I can't speak to people feel there's more or whatnot. Every single case that is reported through the school nurse, through Peggy, is in our dashboard.
Maybe they're confusing the close contacts with positives, because if for every positive, you might have 3 close contacts,
You certainly have more
and
close
so maybe
contacts.
they're getting it that way, I don't know.
So these are actual confirmed cases of COVID, not close contacts as well.
These are only confirmed,
Right, okay.
confirmed cases of COVID.
Right.
And again, from every confirmed case, you would have a number of potential close contacts.
Right.
We don't report on close contacts. We're only reporting on the number of confirmed cases. Now, if a close contact subsequently test positive, they're included in the dashboard.
So these numbers on the dashboard come from Peggy in
Correct.
coordination with the school nurses and the Board of Health.
Correct.
Yep.
Couple of questions that came up on notifications. Okay, so student tests a positive in a particular classroom. Okay, yesterday at the high school, actually, Mr. Murray went through this with parents at the PTO meeting.
Okay.
And at the high school level, we've been getting pretty good notifications, and I think that the letters have become more specific on, there was a student in this particular class who, then you can identify where you were relative to that student.
Okay.
Okay, so at the other schools, what's happening in terms of notification? Is it that level of notification as well?
Yeah, it's actually a little easier at the other schools because the kids spend more time in their individual classrooms. At the high school, they go to several classes during the day. They're with different groups of kids. It's very difficult for the notifications. The high school's doing a good job, but it's very difficult
They
at the high
really
school
are.
level. At the elementary level, say, if you have a positive in a class, then we know that those kids in that class are the same class. They're together all day long. So the class gets a notification that, a student or an individual in Mr. Lang's class has tested positive. You're either a close contact or you're not. And it really comes down to the seating chart in that particular class and whether you're within a 6-foot radius of that particular student. So they would also get a communication saying, there's a positive in the class and you're a close contact or you're not.
Okay, so they would get that. Now, let's say, I've also gotten this question. Let's say that there's a student who has been absent in class for a few days. And people start to question, what's the reason for we haven't received any notification and so on. This is unfortunate, but this is what happens in COVID time. I am sure there are privacy rules and many other things that do not allow you to share why that student is. Is the teacher also exempt from notification as to the reason why the student is not in class?
I don't think I'm following you.
So if there is some COVID-related reason for the
Yeah.
student not being in class, would everybody be notified or only if there was transmission in the school?
No, everyone in the class is notified. They get the generic, someone in our class has tested positive for COVID, right? Everyone gets that. And then they get in the message, you're either identified as a close contact or you're not.
Okay,
So that would be across the board.
and that's if the transmission is in school or in community, it doesn't matter?
Yes, if it's an impact in the class, it wouldn't matter.
Okay.
And it's reported to our dashboard, whether it's an out-of-school or in-school event, any of our kids are testing. If I happen to be a student in the class and I'm just out of school for the week, not that I condone this because I went on vacation or something like this, you're not going to get a message just saying that Jay was out of class for the week.
No, but the class doesn't know why you're out. No, and I'm not saying that they should. I'm
Right.
just saying,
The class will know if it was COVID-related.
okay,
If it was not COVID-related, if it was a personal reason or a trip or something's happening in my family and I need to be out of school, the teacher would typically be notified if a child's not there for what reason, but there'd be no message going out to the whole class.
but if it's COVID-related, a notice is going to go out to the class and so there is kind of an exception, right? for
Well,
COVID.
it's telling you that someone in the class tested positive, staff or student.
Okay,
Yeah, but that does happen.
thank you.
All right, anything else on the COVID dashboard? Or the testing, or the pool testing, or the? All right.
I think we're in pretty good
Yeah.
shape on that. Again, as things keep moving along, I'll provide updates for you. No, we're good on that.
Okay, I think that was the last slide.
No, that
so
was,
just
yeah, that was the
surprised.
last one, the little dashboard. So we'll keep that up, and to Donna's point, I mean, we're doing this in real time. We're being very transparent. We've got 2 different dashboards now telling people what's going on in the district. We're not hiding any cases, any positives that are coming up. Again, school nurse, Peggy, Board of Health, they're being reported in the dashboard.
Right, and I think it's just the people need to understand where we're getting the numbers from. And, you know, essentially, they're being reported to you via Peggy and the Board of Health. And the
Well,
school knows-
and there's overlap too, right?
Right.
Because even if someone doesn't report it directly to us, if someone tests positive in town, a student, it gets reported in the system.
Right,
The town knows that that particular child, tested positive.
right,
They're letting Peggy know.
Right.
They're doing the school notification piece.
Right.
On a positive case, it's really not slipping through the cracks. We know about it. Now, close contacts are a different thing. So people could be thinking, well, so-and-so is a close contact.
right, right.
But if it doesn't pan out to be a positive case, it's not going to get
But I
reported.
guess what I was getting at is the numbers that we're getting are not necessarily reported by teachers or principals or parents. We're getting these numbers from Peggy and the Board of Health,
Correct. And the school nurse.
and the school nurse, yes.
Okay, before we, just, I have one more question. I'm sorry. So if a person is vaccinated,
Yeah.
if I'm vaccinated, I'm in a classroom, and I was a close contact with somebody who tested positive, I am still going to be notified, is that correct?
You're still going to be notified that an individual in the class tested positive,
Okay,
but you are not identified as a close contact because you're vaccinated.
but you will still be notified that somebody in that class did test
Yes,
positive?
if you're in
All
that
right.
class, you still get the notification.
So there's always going to be notification if somebody tested positive for COVID in your particular classroom,
Correct.
period.
Yep.
Even if you're vaccinated, you're going to know that.
You're still going to know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Last item for me on the agenda this evening is just to continue our discussion a little bit about travel. So a couple of things have happened. We did talk to the individuals who coordinate some of the different travel programs that we have coming up over the course of the year. That information is still coming in. There are 2 or 3 major companies that we go through to coordinate those trips for us. Each company has different rules and regulations, and a lot of this stuff is very trip-specific. So the people that are heading up the different trips have set up meetings with the families and the students if they'd like to attend. These are all high school kids primarily, so, they will attend to talk about like the specifics around the trip, what's required, is vaccination required? If you're vaccinated, here are the rules. If you're unvaccinated, here's what you have to do. So they're doing that trip by trip with the individuals. I looked at like 4, of the major trips that we have going overseas, and again, 4 completely different sets of rules based on the destination. And this is what's going to be a little bit in play. All of the groups that were traveling highly recommended, and some even required, the travel insurance on the trips, and there were different levels because you might be healthy now, you might test positive for COVID right before the trip, you might test positive for COVID on the trip. There are all these different scenarios that we're not going to be able to cover every single what if that could happen, but things are changing. So like one of the trips, and this is a middle school trip that's later in May, the Quebec trip. I didn't really think about this at the time, but Canada is actually requiring vaccination. So you can't even register and go on that trip if you're not vaccinated. So as the schools start to do the solicitation for that trip and discussions with the parents, it's just going to be a requirement. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You can't go to Canada if you're not vaccinated. The Peru trip, for an example, they're requiring a negative COVID test upon entry, and then it's a requirement in the country that you actually double mask when you're in public. So there are all these different kind of things that are happening. We talked a little bit about, do we require vaccination on trips? And I think we do need to talk about US trips as opposed to like out-of-country trips, because again, there are different requirements. Some of the feedback that we did get is on these companies, a lot of them, again, did require the travel insurance. The travel insurance would cover if a child, contracts COVID or can't go on a trip. So that's kind of was a parent choice. A couple of them said that if we actually passed like a a vaccination mandate now, and a child didn't want to go on the trip because they didn't want to get vaccinated, then, the parent could get a refund minus whatever the kind of deposit or something on the trip was. So we potentially at that point could actually take on some liability ourselves if we're basically putting that in place and stopping them from going. I don't think there would be anything prohibiting us from, say, going forward. So like anyone to register for any, say, out-of-country trip now going forward would be required to be vaccinated, because people would just know at the time of sign-up that this is just something you have to do. For a little bit of peace of mind, because we're still going through this, we've got about 120-ish students right now that are signed up for the out-of-country trips coming up in February through April. I could only find, and we scanned the list pretty good, we've still got some vaccines coming in. We only have about 7 out of that 120 that aren't vaccinated. And I can't even say that they're not vaccinated. We may just not have their card uploaded into the system yet. So I don't think that this is a big number that we're dealing with. I think, and again, we also have a budget time. So if these families may be, if they're not vaccinated, considering being vaccinated anyway. But that's certainly something to put out there. I mean, if you wanted to, I don't think there's an issue of putting a vaccination requirement going forward, but I don't know if we want to put a requirement on, if it's a local requirement for a trip that was approved, say, a year and a half ago, if people have already paid, and then we would be on the hook at all for any kind of, potential, opening ourselves up to any kind of reimbursement, because we put a disclaimer on the trip that wasn't there previously. It would kind of fall to the parent and whatever insurance package that they purchased on the trip. But I just wanted to surface this again for conversation with you tonight. Again, we're looking at the numbers. I don't think there are a significant number of students who aren't vaccinated. And we are going to find cases, though, where vaccinated people do test positive or, can't go on a trip. And it's going to basically default to whatever insurance the parents purchased for the trip. But each of those options are being laid out for the parents in these meetings that they're having with the individual chaperones. Or the trip hosts, I guess they call them.
And of course, by the time the trip's come down, it could be a whole different ballgame.
Well, it could get worse, it could get better.
It could.
Yeah, I mean, things are gonna change. We could run into a country that actually requires, vaccination like Canada did, that isn't now, but by the time the trip goes, it's happening. And we wouldn't have any control over that.
Right.
Yes, and that's changing all the time.
Where are some of the destinations, like overseas trips?
So we've got February vacation, we've got Puerto Rico.
Costa Rica.
In April, we have Costa Rica, correct?
Okay.
That was April, right?
I thought it was in February, but if it isn't, it's one of those.
All right, I could be wrong, but the destinations are Puerto Rico, I have in February. And then in April, I've got a Peru and a Costa Rica. And then I have May is Quebec. So those are the 4, and then, sorry, Lawrence,
Is-
Yeah, to
Greece,
Greece.
When is Greece? Yeah.
April. That's an April vacation,
And the only one that mandates it now is Canada?
ironically, Canada.
Canada.
One question I do have, though, is, okay, so I understand about, what happens if, they get sick, they've got the insurance, the whole thing, but what happens if they get sick, they test positive, and they can't come back?
I know. So,
Is this part of the insurance, we're gonna provide someone to stay with them? What if they need to be hospitalized and stuff like that?
yeah, well, I mean, that's the insurance. And both of the, like Explorica and then, what was the other big
EFT?
one? EF was the other one. They have a whole protocol for this. I think the more challenging one is, I'm just, as a parent, that I'm kind of reading through, would be if your child ever tested fine here, went on the trip, had a good trip, and then 72 hours before they are going to try to get the flight coming home, if they ever tested positive at that point, they can't fly, and they need to quarantine for 10 days in the country. I believe, I forget which one, maybe it was EF, but one of the companies actually will provide like the hotel room for the child to quarantine in, but they encourage the parent to fly down and be with the child, because the rest of the trip would have gone home at that point, and no one would be in the country with the student. But there's nothing they can do as far as traveling. The student, if they're positive, is going to have to quarantine.
Who's staying with the child?
A parent from the United States would have to fly and be with their child.
In the meantime, who's staying with the child?
A representative
Oh,
from
okay,
the,
all right,
either us or the company
all right,
would be with them. But they're not going to stay for 10 days
right.
with the child, I think is how I was reading this as a parent. So I would be thinking to myself, God forbid something like that happened. Do I have the ability to up and leave because I wouldn't want to have my son or daughter in another country for 10 days, quarantining by themselves. So do I have the ability to quickly travel if I had to another country to basically quarantine with my child before they came back? Now, again, we hope this doesn't happen, but
So parents are aware that this is a possibility.
this is all stuff that they're going to be covering in their different sessions, because EF and Explorica have slightly different rules with how they play this out. And again, there are different levels of insurance that people can buy that would cover different factors of this. So parents would be fully apprised of that.
I think it's also important to look at in the United States trips, and just think those implications through as well, for parents. And some parents already have gone through and have made decisions not to continue payment if they don't feel comfortable that by February, they're going to allow their child to go to a different state.
Right.
Where there might be very different situation from what Massachusetts is facing, and so on. So I think some parents have already thought about it.
February is the Disney trip.
It's Disney,
Right.
Florida.
Right.
So
At least it's in the United States, though.
I know it's in the United States, but it's still different. And so some parents have already started thinking this through, and it might be worth just making sure that,
Right.
folks think it through carefully before, making that decision. Hey, I'm one of the parents for Costa Rica, and I'm gonna have to think it through very carefully. So, it really depends what it's like near that time.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I have to say, the two big travel companies as well, most of the literature that I've read is if you do decide you're just not comfortable and cancel the trip, most of them will give you a voucher for the full amount of money you've paid to go on another trip within a year or two. The only issue that then just becomes for the parent or even the child, like, is there another trip coming up within the next year or two that you'd want to go on? Or if you're a senior, and this whole thing was to be able to kind of go with other seniors on the trip. Obviously, if you're off in college, you might not want to come back and go on a trip. They do work to try to, give those reimbursements, or there's like a cash in you can do to less. One of them was like, you can get your money back less $500. I just forget which one it was. If you just decide you don't want to go on a future trip.
Just kind of getting back to the student who tests positive. I mean, given that they're sharing rooms and things like this, it's entirely possible that we not only have a student who has COVID, but what about close contacts?
Right.
Are they staying until so many days,
But don't they, in order to come back to the country, you have to take a test within 72 hours.
72 hours,
To
okay.
come into the
All right.
United
So you
States.
don't have to-
So
yeah.
they will have
Again, I'm
tested.
going to guess
Okay.
that they would have tested negative.
Right, right,
If they test negative, then they're just monitoring for symptoms, and
okay.
they're probably coming back.
all right.
The issue is the person that tests positive.
And then do we have any policies in place in the district that we're asking the chaperones to enforce on these trips, such as mask wearing and things like that?
We're going to be a little bit beholden to whatever country we're in and following whatever their guidelines are.
What if it's less than what we expect here?
Well, we can express what we would want to have happen, but again, we're not hands-on. They're in
Right.
another country at the time.
Okay,
I think we can express what we'd like to see happen,
All right.
and the chaperones will do this. I do think trips are a little bit different because you've got, nights and you're in a hotel room and things like that.
oh, yes.
And we are going to have to abide by whatever the local requirements are.
I chaperoned one of these trips.
Oh, did you?
Oh, yes. So, yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Given all of these things to consider.
Right.
Okay, all right. And then are we requiring vaccines for the Disney trip? Or is that
Well,
the same
we-
situation?
As of right now, we haven't required vaccines for anything.
Right,
I am just trying to collect the information to figure out exactly how many we already have vaccinated to see how big of an issue this is.
okay,
But that's something we need to talk about, is it, I think, now the Disney trip I know had been on the books for over a year.
right,
They'd already collected money, they were already set to go. I do think if we were, again, potentially to put a vaccine requirement on and someone didn't want to get vaccinated, I don't know what our exposure would be to whatever they've already paid because we're the ones saying that they can't go now after the fact.
right.
But I don't see a problem doing it now. Like if you wanted to require vaccines, I don't know why you couldn't vote as of this date. Anyone who registers for an overseas or in-state, however you want to do a trip, would have to be vaccinated.
You would think if you've already invested money in the trip, that to protect against your child
Right.
testing positive before you leave, that you'd want to get the vaccine.
Yeah, I would think. And again, I probably would have purchased the travel insurance.
Right.
So that if anything happened, I'd have some protection. But if there is a family that absolutely refuses to be vaccinated for whatever reason, then they're kind of relying on their insurance to get them through a situation if something happens.
I think at this point, it's just, meeting with the parents, educating them, here are the options, and, this is what might happen, and, if you're vaccinated, this could happen, if you're not vaccinated, this could happen, if you test positive, this could happen, just letting it all out there, and, and like I said, hopefully they make the right decision,
Right.
in terms of, protecting their
Again,
children.
I was happy as I looked through the list at the overseas trips, like how many were vaccinated. I personally couldn't think of myself traveling or even like my kids traveling out of the country being unvaccinated at this point in time. So I'm hoping those numbers just on their own are gonna go down, but, it's certainly something to keep watching. And without reporting on who they are, I can give you numbers once this is all confirmed, just to give you a sense of what it was looking like. But again, just ballpark, out of the 120-ish or so, I think it was like, 5 to 7 kids that hadn't either been vaccinated or shared their status with us. So we just need to track those down.
Thoughts? Want to just allow these field trips to go and as is, and just make sure to educate them, and then we can discuss whether we want to put something in for future or not.
I'd be curious to see after they meet with the parents and give them their options, if there are changes with number of students going and concerns along those lines.
When are they supposed to be meeting?
February and April, or when they're meeting.
There was I'm probably not gonna be able to pull it up right now. There was an email with the dates of the different sessions. It was all within the next couple of weeks. So I would think by, let me look real quick, did I get this? No, I would think by the end of October, we would have had meetings with everyone, and I can find out what the general discussion of those meetings was like, and let you know if there were any big concerns. Did you happen to get a notice about the Costa Rica one?
This Costa Rica, that I know of, the Costa Rica trip has been off for 2 years, over 2 years. It was supposed to happen the first year that we went out due to COVID and went into remote learning. So we've all been through this, what's covered, what's not covered, transferred it to other trips, or just kept on with it. Personally, the way I'm looking at it is, I want to know what's happening closer to the trip
Right.
in order to really assess whether to do this or not for my students. I do know, however, that there are parents who have told me that if the district cancels a trip, then some of these travel places do refund fully. This is what some parents have told me.
I'm hearing the exact opposite, that if we cancel a trip and the person decides not to go, then they're on the hook for a minimum amount of money, that they might get something back, but they're not gonna get it all back,
Not the whole time.
yeah.
Okay.
And I think that was why these companies have been pushing the insurance so much, so that it really is then just a decision that they're making as a family. And if they feel comfortable, great. If not, they can apply for the the insurance to try to get back their fees. And most of them have been pretty good. Mine is just like a small processing type fee.
Do we have any future, excuse me, field trips coming up that we know of that are gonna be out of state, that we haven't approved yet, out of state, out of country? Is there a Quebec field trip that we haven't approved for the middle schools for the spring or anything
No,
like that?
to my knowledge, I think our trips for this year
Yeah.
are in.
Okay.
I think this is, later in the year, they were starting to talk about next fall, the Spanish exchange.
Oh, that's right, the exchange.
Right, if we take in the students from Spain in the fall, like September, October timeframe, then our students are supposed to travel in the February vacation or April vacation of '23. So what would normally happen is once we set the school calendar in like November, December, and they know what those dates are, they would then work with, say, Spain to figure out when we'd be going, and then that would come forward to you. But if you want, before we approve any additional ones, I could even just see what's out there as far as like other school committees, like what type of, kind of proactive policies they're putting in place for like future travel, and just see if there's any recommendations.
Makes sense. And then, you know, in 3 months, 4 months, when who knows what everything's gonna be like, so.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Can we
do
just make sure that, I know that obviously the travel companies are going to be holding meetings with the parents. Can we just make sure that, that we do our part too, through this, with our band? That we sit down and we just, make sure that parents are all up to date on the information and what we're gonna do is if a kid tests positive down in Florida, all of those kinds of things, because
Sure.
a lot has changed, and I think we do need to, even though it was scheduled a year ago, and a meeting may have happened, I do think it's important to update that information.
Yeah, whoever like the trip chaperones or the trip leaders are would be in on those calls.
Right,
And they really should know all these different protocols that are gonna be in place.
right. So, yeah, I would like to just make sure that our
Sure.
music staff is making sure that the parents are fully aware of what's coming.
Okay.
So maybe for our first November meeting, give us an update of how those meetings went with the different groups.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay.
I don't know that I would have it by the next meeting in October.
No, that's
but
what I said,
think-
the
think
beginning,
the
first
one's
November one,
fine.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, anything else on field trips?
Do we want to make that motion with regards to, from this day forward, they have to have proof of vaccination?
That's why I asked if there's anything coming up. There's nothing coming up for quite a while, so.
All right.
Let's see.
Before I bring you another field trip,
Yeah.
we could have that vote.
Okay, thank you.
I think all these field trips that we've been discussing, for the most part, have already been approved, right?
Previously,
Right.
they were just like date
And
changes.
we shuffled around or whatever because of COVID. And I think if we were voting on it now, today, are we gonna send everybody to Costa Rica? It's a different thought process because I know that, Costa Rica and the United States don't have the same situation going on in there, or any other country, name other countries if you want to, including Canada. So it's a different perspective now, but these are all things that have come up in our meetings in the past, and that's important to think about. So I thought Dennis's question about whether we have anything coming up would definitely impact what we do today.
Sure. I agree.
All right, anything else on this? Okay, any liaison reports? Donna?
So I met with the South Row PTO last night. They recently held their ice cream social, which was wildly successful. They had an excellent turnout, and I think it speaks to the desire of families to want to return to something a little bit more normal. So it was a wonderful opportunity to kind of kick off the school year, and typically a fundraiser, but they actually made money. And then the pumpkin fair is coming up, and this will be a COVID revised pumpkin fair. It will take part on October 16th from 4 to 6. So those are two upcoming things, and they continue to do great work out at South Row. And then I believe the bottle and can drive is happening this Saturday. It's the second Saturday of months between, I think it's August to like about March.
Okay.
Maybe it's a little bit earlier than that, but the point is it's still going to happen. this Saturday. So you're anxious to get there, aren't you?
My shed.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's still full.
Yeah.
All right, Jeff, yes?
The Alumni Association had their Hall of Fame induction. They filmed it on Saturday afternoon, and it is now, if you go to the Alumni Association page, there's a link there to watch it. And I met with the high school PTO last night. They did some business, passing bylaws, et cetera, but the newest, the event they're looking forward to is in December, on December 8th, the Grab Bag, which were very successful last year for teachers and staff. And they've already started to talk about the after prom and, how events are going to play out. And very supportive of whatever the high school needs, so. Did I miss anything?
You did not miss a thing.
Thank you. It took me a while to get it out, but it's.
I haven't, tomorrow night, I believe I have the Harrington PTO, so next time.
Center School PTO was last Wednesday. They have their ice cream social tomorrow. Very well attended as well, because they're having a hard time getting enough volunteers to scoop ice cream. So that was their biggest problem, is they had so many kids signed up, that so many families, that they didn't know if they have enough volunteers. They have their trunk or treat on October 30th, and their recycling day is going to be November 6th, with McCarthy, I believe, here. Went to the CHIPS PTO. They were very sad that Jeff wasn't there, but they were very accepting of me, which is nice, once I got logged in the meeting. They're still having their Socktober sock drive is ongoing. They're having an open house on November 10th, and they're going to have a holiday gift basket raffle in December. And then the last one, CPAC is having a meeting on October 13th. The meeting's at 6:30 to 7, and that'll be followed by an anxiety workshop from 7 to 8:30. So it's all virtual. You can get the information on their website. All right, any new items?
I just have a couple.
Yeah.
Are you sending out one more reminder about Thursday, before Thursday? Okay.
One went out this afternoon.
Oh, okay, I didn't know if you were sending out another one on Thursday or something. But, can we-
About Thursday?
Yeah. Are you done sending out?
Well, Friday I mentioned it in the newsletter.
Right.
And then we sent out a reminder today.
All right, I just wanted to get the information out to people that it's being recorded, but you can't zoom in, that's.
It is being recorded.
Yeah.
But you can't zoom in.
All right. So-
There's just no, at the Elks, there's just no infrastructure to be able to actually have that type of connectivity for the meeting.
Right.
So it was just decided that it would be an in-person meeting, but we would record it and post it to the website.
All right. Could you just put that in here some more, that it's been recorded and uploaded to the website?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then, hang on. So some of the schools, the principals send out their own s'mores, right? Can we get, I think they do that, right? Can we get added to our liaisons distribution list so we can see what the news is?
I gotta think about how to do this. Let me just think about it.
Yes, of course.
I just have to figure like process-wise.
Yeah.
Because some I think are sending it out through the X2, but then
Okay.
some are also using, like I use Blackboard when I send it out.
Right.
But I always have to remember to forward it to you, because if you don't have a student in the system, you wouldn't get the Blackboard
Oh,
message.
Right, okay.
Um,
So maybe we can get our principals to just forward it to us then?
Yeah, the other thing is, like, once it goes out, Chris has been linking them up to the website.
Oh, I haven't found it.
So maybe I'll figure out some way to do it with you.
Okay.
But if it does get posted to the website too, maybe we could just access it that way,
Okay,
as long as it was current. But I'll think about it.
all right, because we're still not, like, for example, our PTOs aren't in person, so we miss out on a lot, I feel like, because we're not,
Right.
there. Hang on.
I don't even get them. I have to go through like Twitter or Facebook or something, because I don't have kids in the system, and if you don't go to that school,
Right,
so that's, usually I hunt for them as
We'll
well.
figure something out.
all right, thank you. That was all I have for, is that new, we're talking about new items? Oh, sorry. I have more.
Okay.
So last year, we decided not to do the standards-based report cards, but we did talk about some of the things that we were going to be doing around standards-based instruction, right? And having things align horizontally and vertically, as well as adding, possible, pacing guides or syllabi or something. Could we get an update on that? I'm not sure where things were at with that. you know, at some point in the
I don't know if I
future?
understand the question. Like,
Sure.
We've always had pacing guides and
Okay.
syllabi.
Okay, so
it's-
that, I think, that was
not
not
new.
as clear to me. But I was just wondering, you know, I know that the standards-based report cards were, they were a method for helping us to be able to kind of be more consistent in our instruction and, you know, grading techniques and all these things. And I was just kind of wondering where things were at the middle school level with regards to those things.
I mean, they've set up their grade book. They'd be posting their grades like they normally would, but through those, you know, identified standards that they
Okay.
have. So they've always aligned their assignments to standards.
Okay. And then, can we just at some point talk about homework? You know, I'm hearing that some kids are getting, you know, 4 and 5 hours of homework a night. And I know that there was a discussion in the past around, you know, relevancy and, you know, maybe not, you know, assigning kids, as I said, quite as much homework, but just to get an update on where things are with that.
Is there a particular, like, grade, like, are you talking?
Middle school and high school, I think, are the ones that are, I'm hearing it the most from, obviously, not the elementary school kids, but.
Anything else? Go ahead, Maria.
Was on the standards-based report card thing, I'm sorry, I must have missed it. Are we going to,
Being applied, but they're not reporting them through that report card. They're using their regular report
okay,
card
so
system.
the report card part of it, we haven't changed how we're grading and so on, but now everybody's aligned on what each,
Which ones they're actually grading on. So it's not like, you know, dealer's choice. If you feel like giving grades about these standards, but then Donna decides she wants to give grades on these standards, everybody's grading on the exact same standards in their grade book.
okay, and
That's what the difference.
Also vertically, that, you know, we were aligned in some way so that as kids are moving through, that they're, you know, getting everything that they need. And I just wasn't sure where we were at with that. I'm not saying that people weren't doing it, I just wasn't sure where we were at with that.
No, absolutely. I can explain that for you.
All right, I just wanted to, since we got a lot of stuff coming up, just quick, go down. Thursday night, we have Doran Whittier at the Elks. A week from that, we're gonna have our workshop here. Monday, the following Monday's town meeting for those of us that are still our meeting reps. Then we have another meeting on the 19th, and then we have our first DEI workshop on the 26th.
We're spending a lot of time together.
So we're gonna spend, I'm looking at my calendar and saying,
it's busy.
yep, busy. Just wanted to make sure everybody,
I see you have the other calendar up there.
Yeah.
If you want, I can throw the Dora Whittier stuff into that.
sure, that'd be great.
And then just recirculate it for you, just so you have all the dates in one place.
That would be
Yeah.
great, thank you.
The good news is it looks like that for November, too.
I know, I know.
So
Yeah, the
I
first half of
This is
November,
gonna be a good,
definitely.
I
yeah,
haven't
we're
looked that
gonna,
far ahead yet, yeah. Okay. All right, we're now to our second public input part. Anybody get any emails, receive any emails that they, I did not myself.
I ain't got any.
Okay. All right, if not, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye, okay. Very good, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just in time for the Red Sox.
I know.